The last echo of battle had faded 3 hours ago, but Voreth could still taste blood in the air. He walked through what remained of the nesting grounds. His massive claws cracked the blackite stone beneath him. Smoke rose from 100 different fires. Broken eggs lay scattered across the sacred caverns like discarded shells. The hive swarm had come without warning, and they had come hungry. Voreth was the alpha of the Draconith. His scales were darker than the void between stars. His wings could block out the sun of any world he chose to visit. For 900 years, he had protected his people. He had never known defeat. Today he learned what defeat tasted like. The other Draconith kept their distance. They watched their alpha move through the destruction, and none dared approach. They had seen him fight during the battle. They had seen him tear through hive drones like they were made of paper. But they had also seen him arrive too late to the inner chambers. Too late to save her. Voreth found Seleith near the entrance to the deepest nesting alcove. Her silver scales had turned gray in death. Her eyes, once bright as twin moons, stared at nothing. Around her lay the bodies of 47 hive drones. She had killed them all before they reached the eggs she was protecting, but more had come, always more. Voreth lowered his great head until his snout touched her cold scales. He stayed there for a long moment. His breath came slow and heavy. Something inside his chest felt broken, like a bone that would never heal. Seleith had been his bonded mate for 600 years. She was the fire in his blood, the calm in his storms. She was the reason he led with wisdom instead of rage. Without her, he did not know what he was. He raised his head and roared. The sound shook the mountains. It echoed across the valleys of Vareth 7, and reached the Galactic Union ships hovering in orbit. It was not a battle cry. It was not a warning. It was the sound of something ancient breaking apart. When the roar finally died, Voreth began searching the destroyed nests. He moved through each chamber with terrible patience. He checked every alcove, every hidden corner, every emergency shelter. He found only ash and broken shells. The next generation of his people had been wiped out in a single night. A Union officer approached him carefully. She was a small creature with blue skin and 4 arms. Her voice trembled when she spoke. Alpha Voreth. The evacuation ships are ready. We must leave before the swarm returns. Voreth did not look at her. I am not leaving. Sir, the moon is lost. Command has ordered full withdrawal. Then withdraw. The officer hesitated. She clearly wanted to argue but knew better. Instead, she offered another piece of information. There is one other matter. A human cargo ship went down in the eastern mountains during the battle. In the restricted nesting zone, Voreth finally turned his head. His eyes glowed like dying embers. Humans. A single pilot. His beacon is still active, but rescue teams cannot reach that area. The terrain is too dangerous. Voreth looked toward the eastern mountains. The frozen passage lay in that direction. Beyond it, the burning fields. No rescue team could survive that journey. Neither could a human. Let him die, Voreth said. I have no interest in soft creatures today. The officer backed away and left him alone with his grief. Voreth returned to Seleith's body. He lay down beside her, his massive form curled around hers like he could somehow keep her warm. He stayed there as the fires burned lower. He stayed as the other Draconith began their evacuation. He stayed as the Union ships departed one by one. He would not leave her. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. But somewhere in the eastern mountains, in a crashed ship surrounded by ice and fire, something was crying. The sound was small and desperate. It came from 3 tiny throats that had never known cruelty until today. They were alone in the dark. They were waiting for someone to save them. And 12 hours ago, a human named Daniel Reed had heard them crying. 12 hours earlier, Daniel Reed was hauling medical supplies through a war zone he had no business being in. His cargo ship was small and old. It had no weapons. It had no shields worth mentioning. What it had was a contract that paid 3 times the normal rate, and Daniel needed the money. His mother's care facility on Earth did not accept excuses. The battle erupted around him without warning. Draconith warships clashed with hive swarm carriers in the upper atmosphere. Energy beams split the sky. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Daniel tried to navigate through the chaos, but a stray shot clipped his starboard engine. The ship screamed as it fell. Daniel fought the controls all the way down. He managed to avoid the worst of the mountain peaks, but the landing was brutal. The ship hit a rocky slope, bounced twice, and came to rest against a cliff face. Smoke poured from the ruined engines. Sparks flew from broken consoles. Daniel hung upside down in his safety harness, blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. He was alive. That was more than he expected. He freed himself and crawled out of the wreckage. The cold hit him immediately. He had crashed in the shadow of a massive glacier where the sun never reached. His breath turned to ice crystals the moment it left his mouth. His emergency beacon was working. That was good. His ship was destroyed. That was bad. The terrain between him and the evacuation zone included the frozen passage and the burning fields. That was very bad. Then he heard the crying. It was a high thin sound, like a baby bird calling for its mother. It came from somewhere nearby, from a small cave hidden behind fallen rocks. Daniel followed the sound. His training from the Arctic rescue teams back on Earth kicked in automatically. He had spent 10 years pulling people from blizzards and avalanches. He knew what distress sounded like in any language. The cave was small and warm. Some kind of thermal vent kept it heated despite the frozen landscape outside. Inside, Daniel found a nest made of shed scales and soft moss. 3 small creatures huddled together in the center. They were Draconith hatchlings. Daniel had seen adult Draconith before. They were massive, terrifying, the apex predators of the galaxy. These babies were the size of house cats. Their scales were soft and bright. Their eyes were huge and wet with tears. The largest one saw Daniel and hissed. It tried to look fierce, but it was shaking with fear. "Easy," Daniel said softly. "Easy now." He looked around the cave. There were no adults, no guardians. The battle must have separated them from their mother. Or worse, an explosion echoed from somewhere outside. The hatchlings screamed and pressed closer together. The smallest one was barely moving. Its scales had turned pale, and its breathing was shallow. Daniel made his decision in less than a second. He pulled thermal blankets from his survival kit and wrapped each hatchling carefully. The largest one bit his hand hard enough to draw blood. Daniel ignored the pain and kept working. "I know," he told them. "I know you are scared. But we cannot stay here." The cave would not protect them for long. The hive swarm was still out there, hunting for survivors, and the thermal vent was failing. Soon this place would be as cold as the glacier outside. Daniel opened his jacket and tucked the smallest hatchling against his chest. Its scales were ice cold. He pressed it close to his heart, hoping his body heat would be enough. The other 2 went into the front pockets of his jacket, bundled in blankets. They weighed almost nothing. They were so young, so helpless. Daniel looked toward the cave entrance. Beyond it lay the frozen passage. Miles of glacial tunnels where the temperature dropped to 60 below zero. After that, the burning fields. Volcanic vents and rivers of molten rock. No human had ever crossed both and survived. Daniel started walking anyway. Behind him, the cave collapsed as another explosion shook the mountains. Flames consumed the only warmth for miles. Ahead, the ice waited. Daniel held 3 alien babies against his chest and stepped into the frozen dark. The cold was a living thing. It wrapped around Daniel like a predator and squeezed. The frozen passage stretched ahead of him, a tunnel of blue ice that seemed to go on forever. His breath came out in white clouds that froze instantly and fell as tiny crystals. The temperature was dropping with every step he took deeper into the glacier. Against his chest, the smallest hatchling whimpered. Its scales had gone from bright gold to a sickly gray. Daniel could feel its tiny heart beating too slowly. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Just a little longer." He opened his jacket wider and pressed the little one directly against his skin. The cold of its scales burned like fire, but Daniel did not pull away. His body heat was the only thing keeping this creature alive. The middle hatchling had started to trust him somewhere in the first hour. It no longer cried. Instead, it pressed its snout against Daniel's neck and made soft chirping sounds. The vibration was oddly comforting. The eldest still watched him with suspicious eyes. But it had stopped biting. Daniel kept walking. His feet were numb. His fingers had stopped responding properly. Frostbite was setting in, but he could not stop. Stopping meant death for all of them. He thought about his years in the Arctic Rescue Corps. He had pulled frozen children from avalanches. He had carried injured hikers through blizzards that lasted days. He knew how to survive the cold. He knew how to keep others alive. But this was worse than anything Earth had thrown at him. A section of ice groaned overhead. Daniel froze. Cracks spread across the ceiling like lightning. He ran. The tunnel collapsed behind him. Tons of ice crashed down, missing him by inches. The sound was deafening. The hatchling screamed in terror. "Shh," Daniel said, even though his own heart was pounding. "We are okay, we made it." He kept moving. The passage twisted and turned. Sometimes it rose steeply. Sometimes it dropped into darkness. Daniel used his emergency light to navigate, but the battery was dying. The middle hatchling began to shiver violently. Daniel stopped and adjusted the thermal blankets, tucking them tighter around the small body. He noticed the hatchling was watching his face. "You understand something is happening, do you not?" Daniel said. "You know I'm trying to help." The hatchling chirped softly and nuzzled his hand. Daniel smiled despite everything. Smart little thing. He shared his emergency rations with them. The food was dry protein bars, not ideal for alien babies. But he chewed each piece into small bits and offered them carefully. The middle one ate eagerly. The eldest refused at first, then hunger won over pride. The smallest was too weak to eat much. Daniel gave it his water instead, letting drops fall into its mouth one at a time. Hours passed. Maybe days. Time lost meaning in the endless blue tunnels. Daniel talked to them constantly. He told them about Earth, about the forests and oceans, about his mother and her garden full of flowers, about the dog he had as a child. His voice echoed off the ice walls, and the hatchlings seemed calmed by the sound. The eldest finally stopped glaring at him. Somewhere in the second day, it started pressing against his side for warmth. Just like its siblings. Daniel's body was failing. He could feel it. His lips were cracked and bleeding. His fingers were black at the tips. Every breath felt like swallowing knives. But the hatchlings were still alive. That was enough. On the third day, he saw light ahead. Not the blue glow of ice, but orange. Warm. The frozen passage ended at the mouth of a vast cavern. Heat poured in from somewhere beyond. The air smelled like sulfur and burning rock. The burning fields. Daniel looked down at the three small creatures depending on him. They had survived the ice. Now they had to survive the fire. He stepped out of the frozen tunnel and into the heat. Behind him, the cold released its grip at last. Ahead, the flames waited. The heat hit Daniel like a wall. After days in the frozen tunnels, it felt like stepping into an oven. The burning fields stretched before him. Rivers of molten rock cut across a landscape of black stone and red flame. Geysers of fire erupted without warning. The air shimmered and danced. Daniel wrapped the hatchlings in reflective emergency blankets. It was all he had left to protect them from the heat. His own skin was already burning, but he ignored it. Something strange happened as they entered the volcanic zone. The hatchlings began to change. The smallest one, which had been so weak and pale in the ice, started to brighten. Its scales flushed with color. Its breathing grew stronger. It lifted its head for the first time in days and chirped. "You like the heat," Daniel realized. "Of course you do. You are dragons." The Draconith were creatures of fire. The cold had been killing them slowly. Here, in the burning wasteland, they were coming back to life. The eldest hatchling became more alert. It started making warning sounds when Daniel approached dangerous ground. Low chirps meant stable rock. High chirps meant thin crust over lava. Daniel learned to listen. "Good," he told it. "Keep talking to me. We will figure this out together." They moved through the burning fields slowly. Daniel picked each step with care. One wrong move would send him into molten rock. The hatchlings would survive the fall. He would not. A sound echoed across the volcanic plain. Clicking. Scraping. The noise of many legs on stone. Hive swarm scouts. Daniel dove behind a boulder and pressed himself flat. He covered the hatchlings with his body and held his breath. The drones passed overhead, their dark shapes blocking out the smoky sky. They were searching for survivors. The youngest hatchling started to make a sound. Daniel covered its mouth gently with his palm. He could feel its confusion, its desire to cry out. But he held firm. "Not now," he breathed. "Please, not now." The drones moved on. Daniel waited until their clicking faded into the distance before he let himself breathe again. "Good babies," he whispered. "Very good babies." They kept moving. The journey became a blur of heat and smoke and pain. Daniel's boots melted at the edges. His exposed skin blistered. When he crossed a narrow bridge of rock over a lava flow, The heat was so intense that his eyebrows singed away. But he never dropped the hatchlings. He never let them fall. On the second day in the burning fields, the ground erupted beneath him. A geyser of fire shot up without warning. Daniel threw himself sideways, curling around the hatchlings to shield them. Burning debris rained down on his back. He screamed but did not let go. When the eruption ended, Daniel lay still for a long moment. His back was a map of burns. His jacket had melted in several places. But when he checked the hatchlings, they were unharmed. The eldest looked up at him with something new in its eyes. Not fear, not suspicion. Respect. Daniel forced himself to his feet. Every movement was agony. But ahead, through the smoke and flame, he could see something. Lights. Ships. The evacuation zone. Almost there? He told the hatchlings. We are almost there. He stumbled forward, step by step, his vision blurred. His legs felt like they belonged to someone else. But he kept moving. The eldest hatchling began to make encouraging sounds. Little chirps that almost sounded like cheering. Daniel laughed. It hurt, but he laughed anyway. Thank you, he said. I needed that. He emerged from the burning fields as the sun broke through the smoke. The evacuation zone lay before him. Union ships sat on landing pads. Soldiers moved in organized patterns. Daniel had made it. He fell to his knees at the edge of the volcanic zone. The hatchlings chirped in alarm, but he could not stand any more. His body had finally reached its limit. Above him, a shadow crossed the sky. Something massive. Something ancient. Daniel looked up and saw a Draconith Alpha descending toward him like the wrath of a dying star. Vorath had found his children at last. Vorath landed with enough force to crack the stone beneath his claws. His wings spread wide, blocking out the sky. His eyes burned with 900 years of rage and grief and something else. Hope. Terrible, desperate hope. Daniel did not move. He could not. His body had given everything it had. He knelt in the ash and smoke, clutching 3 small bundles against his ruined chest. Vorath stalked toward him. Each step shook the ground. His voice was like thunder rolling across mountains. What do you carry, human? Daniel looked up at the most terrifying creature he had ever seen. He felt no fear. There was no room for fear anymore. Only exhaustion. Your children, he said simply. I think. He opened his jacket slowly. The hatchlings blinked in the sudden light. The eldest saw Vorath first. It recognized something in the massive Draconith. A scent. A presence. It chirped. Vorath froze. His claws dug into the stone. His breath stopped. He stared at the 3 small creatures as if he was seeing ghosts. Salid's clutch, he whispered. The secret nest. She never told me. He reached toward them with one massive claw. The hatchlings reacted instantly. They pressed back against Daniel's chest. They made frightened sounds. The smallest one buried its face in Daniel's shirt. They feared their own father, but they trusted the burned human who had carried them through hell. Vorath pulled his claw back as if he had been burned. Pain crossed his ancient face. A different kind of pain than grief. This was the pain of rejection. They do not know me, he said. Daniel looked at the hatchlings, then back at the alpha. They have been through a lot. Give them time. Time. Vorath's voice was bitter. What do you know of time, human? You live for a single breath compared to us. Daniel shrugged. The movement made him wince. I know that these 3 were alone and scared. I know they were going to die if someone did not help them, so I helped them. Vorath studied the human. Really looked at him for the first time. He saw the frostbite on Daniel's fingers, black and dead. He would lose them. He saw the burns across his arms and back. The blisters, the places where skin had melted away. He saw the bite mark on his hand where the eldest had attacked him. This soft, fragile creature had walked through ice that would kill most species. He had crossed fire that burned his flesh from his bones. He had protected 3 hatchlings that were not his own. That were not even his species. Why? Vorath demanded. Humans gain nothing from this. We are not allies. We are barely aware you exist. Why would you suffer for our young? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that Vorath would remember for the rest of his very long life. They were crying. That was enough. Vorath did not understand. He could not understand. His species operated on logic, on hierarchy, on ancient codes of honor and debt. No Draconith would risk death for strangers. But humans were not Draconoth. Humans were something else entirely. Vorath lowered his massive head until he was eye level with Daniel. The human did not flinch. He simply sat there, holding 3 sleeping hatchlings, looking at the alpha with tired patience. "You carried my children through fire and ice," Vorath said slowly. "You gave your flesh to keep them warm. You gave your blood when they bit you in fear. You gave everything and you expected nothing in return." Daniel nodded. "They needed help. I could help. It is not complicated." Vorath was silent for a long moment. Then he did something that no Draconith Alpha had done in 3,000 years. He bowed his head to a human. "I have no words," Vorath said. "In 900 years I have never had no words. But I have none now." Daniel smiled faintly. "Then do not speak. Just take care of them. They are good kids." His eyes closed, his body finally gave out. He slumped forward, still cradling the hatchlings even as consciousness left him. Vorath caught him with a gentleness that surprised even himself. "Get the healers," he commanded. "Now. This human does not die today." Daniel woke in a medical bay that smelled like antiseptic and something warm, like cinnamon and smoke. He tried to sit up and failed. His body felt like it belonged to someone else. Bandages covered most of his skin. His hands were wrapped in thick white gauze. "Easy." A gentle voice came from beside him. A woman with dark hair and kind eyes was checking his monitors. "You have been through quite a lot, Mr. Reed." "The hatchlings," Daniel said immediately. "Are they okay?" The woman smiled. Dr. Priya Nair, her badge red. "They are more than okay. They are healthy." All 3 of them. Relief washed through Daniel like warm water. "Good. That is good. It should be impossible, you know." Dr. Nair sat down beside his bed. "The youngest one should have died in the first hour of cold exposure. Draconith hatchlings cannot regulate their temperature. They need external heat sources." Daniel remembered pressing the little one against his chest, feeling its cold scales against his heart. "You kept it alive with your body heat alone," Dr. Nair continued. "For 3 days. In temperatures that should have killed you both. The medical team is still trying to figure out how." "Stubbornness," Daniel said. "My mother always said I was too stubborn to die." A shadow fell across the doorway. Vorath stood there, too large to actually enter the human-sized room. His dark eyes watched Daniel with an expression that was hard to read. "Leave us," Vorath said to the doctor. It was not a request. Dr. Nair looked at Daniel. He nodded. She left quietly. Vorath crouched low, bringing his massive head to the level of the door. "How do you feel, human?" "Like I walked through ice and fire," Daniel managed a weak smile. "Oh wait," Vorath made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You have a strange sense of humor. It helps." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Vorath spoke again, his voice softer than before. "I spent 3 days lying beside my mate's body, refusing to move. Refusing to accept that everything was gone." He paused. "While you were carrying her children to safety." Children I did not even know existed. Daniel did not know what to say. So he said nothing. "She hid them," Vorath continued. "A secret clutch. An emergency nest in case the main grounds were attacked. She knew. She always knew the swarm would come eventually. She prepared. She sounds like she was smart. She was everything." Vorath's voice cracked. "And now she is gone. But her children are alive. Because of you." The hatchlings appeared behind their father. They squeezed past his legs and rushed into the room. The middle one reached Daniel's bed first, climbing up and pressing against his side. The youngest followed, curling up near his bandaged hand. Even the eldest came, settling at the foot of the bed with watchful eyes. "They will not leave you," Vorath said. There was wonder in his voice. "I am their father. They're alpha, but they bonded with you in those tunnels. You are their safety now." Daniel looked at the 3 small creatures surrounding him. He felt their warmth through the blankets, heard their content chirping. "I do not know how to raise dragons," he admitted. "Then learn." Vorath straightened to his full height. "I am declaring you Sheth Vorath, guardian of the Alpha's blood. It is a title that has not been given to a non-Draconith in 3,000 years." Daniel blinked. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means you are family now. It means my children are your children. It means the entire Draconith species owes you a debt that can never be repaid." Vorath paused. "It means you are no longer alone, Daniel Reed." The words hit harder than Daniel expected. He had been alone for a long time, since his father died. Since his mother's mind started fading. Since the Arctic Rescue Corps disbanded. Now he had 3 alien babies using him as a pillow and an ancient dragon calling him family. Okay, Daniel said quietly. Okay. Weeks later, Daniel sat on an observation deck of the refugee ship, watching stars drift past. The youngest hatchling slept in his jacket pocket. The middle one sat on his shoulder, chirping at passing crew members. The eldest lay across his feet like a guard dog. Vorath appeared beside him. The Alpha had taken to seeking Daniel out, sharing stories about Salaith, about his people, about the long history of the Draconith. Daniel listened. That was all Vorath needed. Someone to listen. She chose well, Vorath said suddenly. Daniel looked up. What? Salaith. The location of the secret nest. She chose a place where a human ship would crash. Vorath's eyes glittered. Perhaps it was fate. Perhaps it was luck. But I choose to believe she knew somehow. That she placed her children where they would find their guardian. The youngest hatchling yawned and snuggled deeper into Daniel's pocket. They are good kids, Daniel said. Vorath watched the human adjust his jacket to keep the little one warm. The same way he had carried all 3 through fire and ice. Yes, Vorath said. And they found someone worthy of them. The stars burned cold and distant outside the window. But inside the ship, something new had begun. A family made of fire and stubbornness. A bond that would echo through the galaxy for generations. And at the center of it all, a human who had simply refused to let 3 crying children die alone in the dark.